Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The topic before this house is this house will ban commercial surrogacy. As the Prime Minister, this house is simply the world at large, and when we mean ban, we mean we'll stop all forms or any form of commercial surrogacy in itself. So there will be no concept of commercial surrogacy at large. Alright, now let's talk about what surrogacy means, right? When you're talking about surrogacy, you're talking about the act of birth. Now, the act of giving birth. Now, how is this different from something like the right to speech or the right to expression or the right to any other human right, right? You need to realize that the right to birth or giving birth is not just a human right, but a fundamental right in the sense that it is a natural right. Now, what is a natural right and how is it different from that of a human right? Now, a natural right is a right which is not given by any social construct by a government when we give up any social right, right? So it's not a part of any a social contract. It's not given by virtue of a social contract. It is given to you by virtue of your existence. It is given to you because it is a part of you, it is innate, and it has been developed over a period of time as you have evolved from a single-celled organism to a multicellular human being that you are right now, right? The act of giving birth is so innate and inbred that it is not something that can be taken away simply on the basis of a whim, or something that can be commercialized on the basis of a whim, because it is so innate to you. That is how where it is different from a human right itself, because it is a natural right, and keep that in mind, right? So when we go on to this part, into this debate, we will give you 4 basic constructs, and these constructs will be on the basis of morality and economics, right? What happens, and this is the first construct, when we commodify something like a human right itself, right? Which is the labor, let's say, for example, a person has, or the organs a person has, right? What happens is that people understand that certain people in certain situations do not have complete control over their labor. So what happens is that people start exploiting that labor because they realize that they realize that when they flood the market with the opportunity, these people will come climbing because they have no other proper control over the labor. That's what happens with bonded labor in many cases, and when people are paid below the minimum wage, right? So this is what happens with something like a human right, which is the labor that a person has. Similarly, we believe that when there is something like birth, when you try and commodify something like birth, people will try and exploit it to such a degree that it will disintegrate the concept of giving birth, which is a very holy or a sanctified act, right? Yeah. And therefore we believe that simply on the basis of exploitations and simply on the basis of completely denigrating the structure of the act of giving birth, you should not do this. Second of all, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that surrogacy should be available for everyone. Now, what do we mean? When we talk about commercial surrogacy, we believe that certain stratas of society will only be able to afford this surrogacy, right? That is a very important crux in today's debate. And therefore, what happens is that we believe that everyone should have the right to having a child. And when you have something like a commercial surrogacy, it gives a sort of barrier in which you say, to be a parent, you must be monetarily qualified enough to have a parent, and which completely goes against the fact that if you want to be a parent, it does not matter what monetary background you come from. Any sort of monetary claim to your parenthood is not talked about in any way, and it completely talks about the fact, it takes away from the fact that a person can be a parent irrespective from which monetary background he or she is from, right? So when surrogacy is available for everyone without a price tag, we believe this equitable ability of, let's say, a farmer or a bonded or a person working in, let's say, for example, a factory who isn't paid so well, who cannot have a child and wants to have a child, will be able to avail of this opportunity. Instead, if we do not ban this, what happens is that we pass a moral judgment and say that people who have the money can only raise children properly and have the right to conceive a child or to make a child or to invest in a child for its future, right?
My point, sir.
Yes.
Cancer treatments in some countries are extremely expensive. Because of that, would you recommend banning cancer treatment altogether?
No, this is what we are talking about. There is a basic difference between cancer treatment and giving birth, right? When I talked about a natural right, right? Giving birth, let's talk about it in a little technical way, right? I'm sorry I'm getting into this technicality. But let's talk about selection, natural selection, right? Natural selection says that there will be certain circumstances in which, say for example, that circumstance exists you will either survive or die out, right? Your monetary gains and your monetary amount, the amount of money that you gain, amount of money that you earn, might be a part of that natural selection in which you can earn the right for that cancer treatment. But this cancer treatment is different from a natural right, in the sense that a natural right is something that is more innate and is more a part of you in a sense. All right. So moving on. The third thing is, many of them will come up to us and say, when we ban, it will lead to a black market, right? Many of them will say that if you ban marijuana, it will lead to a black market of drug cartels, etc., etc. And that will be the primary argument, one of the primary arguments from their side. My concept is very simple, all right? Just because a black market comes into the existence doesn't mean that if we ban, what happens is that we condone the action. We believe that if an action is bad in itself, simply for the sake of not having a black market, you should not ban it in its sense. And this point will be probably explained by the Deputy PM, right? And the third and fourth and most important point is that it destroys the concept of giving birth. All right? Let's look at prostitution. All right? Now, why are we drawing this parallel to prostitution? When we talk about prostitution, we say that the act of sex is something that is very personal, right? And a person should have his or her own choice to it. When you objectify it, when you put money into the equation, it becomes a sort of an obligation or a sort of, say for example, earning money, right? We believe that this corrupts the entire act of the sanctity of sexual intercourse. Similarly, in terms of, let's say for example, giving birth, if you commodify it, if you objectify it, it corrupts the sanctity of this act of giving birth. And with this, as the Prime Minister, I am proud to propose. Thank you.
Yeah. We can shift position.
Okay, so good morning. As the leader of opposition, what I'm going to be doing here today is, one, I'm going to be hashing out our case as the opposition first. So firstly, I'm going to be talking about our constructives. We have 4 to 5 main constructives. First, we'll be explaining commercial surrogacy a bit, which they have conveniently forgotten to do. Secondly, we'll be talking about how they said giving birth is a natural right. We are going to say that having a family is a natural right? Thirdly, we are going to be talking about how commercial surrogacy as it stands right now is an avenue for generating employment and generating income in society. Fourth, we are going to be talking about how pushing something or banning something is going to push it underground, and that is going to lead to certain detrimental effects. And I'm going to show you how banning is going to outweigh is going to cause a bad effect on society as a whole. First, I'm going to start off with a few rebuttals. So the government comes here and tells us that we are given certain rights, right? As the opposition, we believe that the government or any judicial body does not give us any rights. What it does is it only acknowledges and justifies the restriction of certain rights where those rights are, where it is deemed necessary, right? So you are restricted from going and killing someone because it has a bad effect on society as a whole, because you cannot go out and claim it to you claim to have a natural right to kill someone, right? That is where you ban murder and you punish murder, right? My second rebuttal would be that so they say that we want to ban this because we want free surrogacy to be available to everyone, right? So in a sense, what they are doing is now they are restricting free surrogacy in any case, right? So what they are doing is they are banning certain people from having it just because they do not have the income to avail that facility, right? Now when we raise the POI about cancer treatment, right, can this side of the house tell us that if I have the money and I have cancer, does me remaining alive not constitute a right of mine to avail that facility. Just if I have the money and I can avail the facility of cancer treatment, that does, in a sense, guarantee me the I should be able to take to avail that facility. Fourthly, yeah. So now let me get to my constructives. My first constructive would be that we believe having a family is a fundamental right and a basic need for human beings, right? So as human nature has developed, right, reproduction is a general, it is a general aspect of human nature. Everyone, as a human, you want to reproduce to build a family. You want to be able to have a child so that you can care for them, you can nurture them, you can help them grow, right? You have a point? Okay, yeah. So we believe that their system here actually denies certain families from being able to express themselves and to create a family that every human desires, right? Suppose a mother and father are not able to themselves have a child. We believe that this facility of commercial surrogacy should be there in society, so that they can make avail of that facility irrespective of how expensive or not expensive that is. Now, now in commercial surrogacy, the important point here is that the lady whose womb the baby develops in, right? This lady, her medical treatments are taken care of. She is handsomely compensated, and she's extremely well taken care of, right? So we believe that this aspect to commercial surrogacy is important because it allows someone the facility to, one, earn for themselves, two, also earn for their families. And three, we believe that if this facility was not there, this same lady in the black market would not get any of these benefits and would be subject to the exploitation that they are against, right? So we believe that this aspect of commercial surrogacy is very important and an important component of this debate. So now let me talk about how yes, sir, you have a point.
Yes, sir. So even if free surrogacy is only allowed, how are you encroaching upon the ability of individuals to have the right to a family?
Sir, if only free surrogacy are allowed, you might not be encroaching upon that right. But there are certain incentives involved in commercial surrogacy that allow people to have this facility, right? Suppose a female, by her choice, okay, wants to take care of her family, and educating her child and feeding her child is paramount of importance to her. However, the only avenue that she's finding enough money to do that is commercial surrogacy. You are going to take away that facility from that woman in your scenario, and we believe that this is not right, and we believe that this woman should still have that facility in society. So what have we talked about today? Okay, we've talked about how commercial surrogacy in its current state has many allied benefits to the woman, one, who is carrying the baby. Two, we've talked about how because having a family is a natural desire and an innate desire for human beings. That is why certain couples who are not able to have a baby should have this facility available to them. Three, we've talked about how having this facility available to the society or to this family enables this whole aspect from not going underground and not leading to exploitation, to the exploitation that they are against, that this house here is highly against. My deputy is now going to talk about how commercial surrogacy actually empowers women in a way, and with that, I'm very, very proud to oppose.
Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So, primarily, my speech will be made up of two major rebuttals which we found in the speech given by the opening opposition, and two major constructive which we feel have been left, which need to be sufficiently explained to the House here. Now, talking about my first rebuttal, ladies and gentlemen, the opening side of the opposition comes up and tells you that rights are nothing but things which are acknowledged by a government, ladies and gentlemen. But what the opening government here has talked about, ladies and gentlemen, are natural rights which are not subjected to anyone's acknowledgement, but merely exist for the simple fact that they are natural. Trees exist because they are natural. They don't exist because we call them trees, ladies and gentlemen. And that is the whole idea of giving birth, ladies and gentlemen. Giving birth is natural, and it does not need the acknowledgement of a body who says, okay, this process is called giving birth, ladies and gentlemen. And as far as their whole point about cancer treatment should be banned because it is too expensive and not available for everybody, ladies and gentlemen, this is what the opening opposition says here. But what we say, ladies and gentlemen, is there it is important to make cancer treatment available to everyone. Therefore, do not ban it, but make it free for everybody, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why we say that commercial surrogacy is bad, because the moment surrogacy is made commercial, it is not available for everybody, ladies and gentlemen. It is only available for those set of people who can afford those medical procedures and who can afford to pay for those medical bills which are required to be paid for, ladies and gentlemen. Now, second of all, ladies and gentlemen, they talk about having a family as a commercial right, ladies and gentlemen. They talk about the sanctity of having a family, ladies and gentlemen. We say that having a family is not a commercial right, it is a natural desire which needs to be fulfilled at any cost, and the moment you put a price tag on it, it goes against the very principles the opposition side has set the entire stand upon, ladies and gentlemen. It becomes less available for people who actually want it. The moment they talk about giving employment, they talk about making it more organized, they talk about generating revenues, and they talk about a better life for the surrogate mothers, ladies and gentlemen. But what we tell you here is that the moment you commercialize it, the whole idea of economics steps in, the whole idea of profit and loss steps in, the whole idea of companies commercializing the entire sanctity of giving birth steps in, ladies and gentlemen. It commodifies the entire process of motherhood, it commodifies parenthood, ladies and gentlemen. So now, talking mainly about our two constructive, ladies and gentlemen. So let's talk about the whole idea of banning, so now what the side proposition says here is, ladies and gentlemen, that the moment you ban something, right, it goes undercover, it goes into the background, and the operations still continue, and a whole black market exists of the entire process. So if you ban commercial surrogacy, ladies and gentlemen, there will be a black market. According to the side opposition, a black market will automatically pop up wherein underground surrogacy will still happen, ladies and gentlemen. But they forget what the side government is saying here, ladies and gentlemen. We are not banning surrogacy, we are banning commercial surrogacy, ladies and gentlemen. And how do we justify not banning something, ladies and gentlemen? Say for example, guns are bad, right? Guns should be banned in school. We agree, guns should be banned in school. But the fact that banning guns in school will lead to people illegally smuggling guns into the school justifies not banning them is not true, ladies and gentlemen. So just because a black market would exist because you have banned something does not make something good. So if a black market for marijuana exists, doesn't mean you legalize marijuana. Just having a black market does not make marijuana good, ladies and gentlemen. It in fact means that it does not justify anything. Especially it does not justify making commercial surrogacy legal, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's talk about what the primary stand of side proposition has been here, ladies and gentlemen. We have talked to you about two things here essentially when we say commercial surrogacy should be banned. We have told you about equitable availability of the whole idea of surrogacy to everyone in the society in general, irrespective of their financial status, ladies and gentlemen, thereby fulfilling what these people call the desire of having a family, which we have very categorically told you is a natural desire, ladies and gentlemen. Second of all, we have told you in the same breath that it is important to uphold the sanctity of parenthood. It is important to uphold the sanctity of giving birth, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, sir, I take your point.
If giving birth is a natural and innate right, would you not want to provide a poor woman the joy of having this right without having the pressure of then raising the child post-birth?
So that would basically, so what you're trying to say is, sir, a woman is, the moment a lady decides to give birth to a child, she is mentally prepared to do anything and everything she needs to bring up that child. So the entire question of whether she wants to take the responsibility of a child is preposterous here, because the moment she decides she wants a baby, she also decides she is ready to uphold those rights which she has, the duties which she would need to bring up that child, ladies and gentlemen. So now going back to my whole point of equitable availability and in the same breath upholding the sanctity of giving birth, ladies and gentlemen. Here let's go back to the analogy of prostitution, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see how the process of prostitution works, okay? You go to a female, you pay her to have sex with you, in the entire process, there are two parties who are benefiting. Financial benefit is going to the prostitute, but the sexual and the pleasure benefit is going to the person who's paying her. But what do we forget in this process? We forget that the entire sanctity of making love dies here, ladies and gentlemen. Sanctity of making love means that both the parties get the benefit of making love, right? They get the pleasure of having sex. But the woman is having sex out of the obligation because she is getting paid, ladies and gentlemen. In the same way, when you say commercial surrogacy, ladies and gentlemen, commercial surrogacy would mean that a person is doing it merely for the money. Right? It kills the entire sanctity of the process of giving birth, wherein the motherly feelings kick in into a person. The parents of the child would never. So they say that according to them, if they are having a surrogate mother and they do not have a commercial tag to it, the mother would not be taken care of, her medical bills won't be paid. What we are telling you, ladies and gentlemen, the very fact that this certain set of family chose to have a surrogate mother because they were not able to conceive on their own means they would eventually take the responsibility of this surrogate mother and pay for everything, irrespective of whether there is a commercial tag set to surrogacy or not, ladies and gentlemen. So what has the opening side of proposition told you here, ladies and gentlemen? We have told you that commercialization of surrogacy is going against every principle that the opposition has talked about here. It is going against the entire idea of having families. It is going against the entire idea of underground market. It is going against the entire sanctity of parenthood, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, speaking second from side opposition, we'd like to make some clarifications in what we understood of side proposition's case, or rather what existed of side proposition's case, which we have to admit was not very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let me first clarify that side opposition believes very firmly, like most of the sane world, that choosing to ban something merely because it offends your personal morality or because it makes the government feel uncomfortable about the sanctity of certain natural rights and and because you're able to use long words about it, none of those are good enough reasons to ban something. When a government makes the decision to ban whatever, ladies and gentlemen, they weigh the benefits and the disadvantages to all the stakeholders involved, ladies and gentlemen, and then make a call on whether or not it is to the betterment of their people, whether it upholds their rights, whether it's for the betterment of all civilization, for something to be banned, ladies and gentlemen. So let me first talk to you about what they keep the very vague concept / sanctity of giving birth, ladies and gentlemen, the apparent joy of giving birth, which apparently, if you allow people to be surrogates, will be completely destroyed, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me point out, because it's fairly simple, if person A goes out there and becomes a surrogate, that doesn't mean that person B cannot enjoy the joy of giving birth, knowing that person A is a surrogate, ladies and gentlemen. They have at no point demonstrated that. Further, ladies and gentlemen, the idea of I very strongly believe that the chief reason that they have in fact been so vague about the joy of giving birth and the concept and sanctity of giving birth is because they really can't apply it to any real world situation. It's simply going to break down, ladies and gentlemen. Let me point out to you that in the real world, outside of this debating hall, the women who go in there, the women who choose to be surrogates for other people, they very often come from situations in which it's a good thing to them. It's a major step up in the world. These are women who don't necessarily have a say in whether or not they want to have kids. These are women who don't necessarily have the ability to say, no, I don't want to have sex with you, to their husbands, ladies and gentlemen. They often live in countries such as the many surrogates who live in Surat, all live in a country which does not recognize the concept of marital rape, ladies and gentlemen. They're not really thinking about the joy of giving birth when they decide to get pregnant. They're not really thinking about, not taken right now. They're not really thinking about the sanctity of giving birth when they decide to get pregnant. So further on, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to explain to you why specifically as stakeholders, this is a wonderful thing for women. But further, let me first, before I finish up, let me just clarify the other vague things that opening government has had to say today, ladies and gentlemen. They came up here and they talked about natural rights, ladies and gentlemen. We have no idea what the hell they're talking about because we've never heard of these things. As far as we know, a tree might have the natural right to exist, but if I take an axe and chop it down, the government's not going to stop me, and therefore, as far as I'm concerned, the tree may as well shall not have that right. Further, we don't understand what they keep talking about in terms of me attacking their natural rights by making it acceptable for commercial surrogacy to happen, ladies and gentlemen. We don't see whose rights we're restricting in saying that people are allowed to in fact be surrogates. It's them who are saying that people are not allowed to do certain things. We're saying go ahead and do it. We believe that you have the natural right to give birth. You have the natural right to have families. You have the natural rights and let's face it, the legal rights as well to do all of these things, and yet they're coming up here and accusing us of restricting other people's rights, ladies and gentlemen. We really don't understand that. Finally, they keep talking to you about the idea of free surrogacy, ladies and gentlemen. Not taken, sir. We don't understand where this free surrogacy is going to come from. We don't understand how, if you suddenly shut down commercial surrogacy, what would the incentive be for women to come out there and give their wombs? Fundamentally, they're cutting, instead, right now they say that a few families who are not rich enough to afford this treatment are unable to get to have surrogacy and unable to have kids. What they're proposing instead is a situation in which no one is able to have access to surrogacy. No infertile couples are able to have kids, and we don't think that's a solution at all, ladies and gentlemen. We just think it's worse. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you about the idea of the black market and exploitation. Now, coming back to what I was talking about at the very beginning of the speech, the idea of weighing the benefits and the disadvantages to stakeholders, we do believe that just because a black market would crop up is not a great reason to decide not to ban something, but we do think that when the existence of a black market would be tremendously worse for all stakeholders involved, it makes sense not to ban something, it makes sense to regulate it instead, ladies and gentlemen. Finally, let me come to the crux of our case, which is the idea of the empowerment of women, ladies and gentlemen. Like I told you before, a lot of the women who go in for surrogacy often have no other avenues with which to earn money. They are often not adequately literate. They're not in situations in which they have great agency in their lives. They're not in situations in which they are the people who are making the decisions in their lives. They're poor, they're illiterate. They come from parts of the country where they often haven't had access to the right kind of health facilities, the right kind of education. And we believe that giving them the opportunity to be breadwinners by merely renting out a womb that they are having used by their husbands anyway, we believe that gives them power and agency. It gives them respect in their families, respect in their communities by virtue of being the people who bring in the money, ladies and gentlemen. And that is a tremendous, not taken sir, and that is a tremendous sort of power in poor communities. Further, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that offering as Sai government so rightly pointed out, a woman who's being hired as a surrogate would have access to the best of healthcare, the best of guidelines for pregnancy, the best sort of education about pregnancy. And we believe that when a woman has had that sort of education, it constitutes a great sort of, it has an impact on the rest of her life. It has an impact on the lives of people around her, ladies and gentlemen. And we believe that it's a great thing for her to have that sort of education, for there to be that sort of trickle-down effect into the communities around her, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore, we believe that commercial surrogacy taken as a whole is actually an advantage to the sort of women who are in fact indulging in such sort of commercial surrogacy. Further, ladies and gentlemen, it enables them to challenge certain social norms. It enables them to challenge the norms of who the breadwinners are, who makes the decisions, who gets to use whose womb for what purpose, and who gets to give permission, ladies and gentlemen. And we believe that in the kind of communities where this is going on, that is a fantastic positive change, ladies and gentlemen. Further, in the communities themselves, the influx of people coming into these communities, giving their money, oftentimes their foreign exchange, for this to happen results in overwhelming positive change for the community. It results in increased incomes. It results in employment by and large, ladies and gentlemen. So we think that if you actually took a step back and weighed the pros and cons, you'd find that the women get money, they get agency, they get power in their lives, they have an education that is excellent for them. The people using the surrogate have the right to have children, ladies and gentlemen. They gain that fantastic right. And finally, the wider community is also vastly benefited. Thank you.
The extension from closing government is that the right to be able to bear a child is a 9-month process, and it is an inalienable right, and therefore nothing, no amount of money, nothing gives the government or any individual the right to give up this inalienable right under any circumstances. But first we go to the rebuttals, right? The first rebuttal let's categorically break down opening opposition's case. It was about the right to family, and we tell you that as free surrogacy is available in modern society, the right to have a family still stands. The accessibility may go down, but you can still have a family, right? Secondly, they brought up to you the entire idea of there's going to be a black market. But this is where we tell you that the black market, which may exist, it's an even if argument, even if it exists in the case of commercial surrogacy, why will it be different from all other black markets? In other kinds of black markets like prostitution, like marijuana, be it cocaine, if I am consuming cocaine or if I am buying marijuana, I am criminally liable. If I am selling my body as a prostitute, I am criminally liable, right? And that is where, Mr. Speaker, or rather Madam Speaker, that is where such a big problem lies out, because if you do not legalize prostitution, women will constantly go into the prostitution line and then they will be criminally liable later on. But in a black market for surrogacy, the woman will never be held criminally liable in a black market of surrogacy, the woman will never be criminally liable for bearing a child in the first place, right? So there is never going to be any kind of oppression or any kind of, let's say, objectification the woman is going to go through, because it is going to be the stockbrokers, the middleman, the doctor, the person trying to buy the baby who will be criminally liable. But the woman will always be protected, and this is where it is so very, very different. But first, let us answer the question as what is it going to do to the entire idea of what a woman exactly stands for in modern society. And it has been through great struggles that the feminist movement has progressed from a point where women were essentially viewed as people who only bear children to the point where they are now individuals who can go out there and make the most rational assessment of what matters to them the most. They can make the most rational assessment to what they want in life, what kind of choices they want to build upon, what are their careers, etc., right? But we tell you that the moment you go out there and you attach a personal price, the moment you go out there and attach a price tag to this entire concept of surrogacy in the first place, it automatically reinforces and again entrenches that kind of image in the kinds of all families, right? So the very women they were talked about who would be benefited in families, and they said that if I am a woman in a family and I go out there and let's say go under commercial surrogacy, my family will start respecting more. The same family will not allow her to go out there and pursue education. The same family will not allow her to go out there and seek employment, because it's as simple as that. You can have a baby naturally. Let's go out there, just have a baby, right? So her entire viewpoint gets again restricted to that woman who can only bear children in the first place, and now you are further giving an entire backstory to the entire feminist movement. Here we tell you, even though you have a monetary benefit taking place, the entire ideology of this women being individuals who can make decisions for themselves automatically goes out, right? Because you don't get respect by merely earning money. You get respect when people around you start respecting, and we tell you, this is again going to lead to a degenerating mindset in the minds of men all around the world, who will again start viewing as people who can only bear children, and now they get the money to it, so let's restrict them to that, right?
On that
but
point,
let's
sir?
not later, after 5 minutes. But let's come out to the entire point as to why this idea of being able to bear a child is so very, very different, right? Because pregnancy is not merely the act of a doctor taking out a baby out of your vagina. I don't want to use the term, okay? Out of your vagina. Pregnancy is a very long-term process, right? Pregnancy happens over a period of 9 months, and even though a woman might enter into this contract of commercial surrogacy knowing she's going to have a baby, over 9 months, there are different processes involved. There are ideas of nutrition involved. There are ideas she might go attach to the baby. There are ideas or images in her mind as to how she wants to bring that baby up. What does she want this baby to do in the future, Mr. Speaker? And we tell you, the moment a woman enters into a contract of commercial surrogacy, if during these 9 months she enters into kind of an emotional attachment to this child, if during these 9 months she wants the child to be brought up in a particular way, she cannot opt out of this contract in any means whatsoever, because now she has been legally binded, and therefore the entire idea of this woman being able to control what way the child wants to be brought about gets lost, right? That is why, Mr. Speaker, we do not allow parents to sell their children openly, right? That is why I cannot sell a 4 or 5-year-old daughter in the first place, because when I am having that child, there is this emotional bond which gets developed, and this bond which gets compromised, right? We are constantly trying to ask a POI to them that if a husband offers money to a wife to beat her, does that justify the wife going out there and selling her body rights to the husband? Does that justify domestic violence? In a similar way, if I enter into a contract with Jatan or my teammate and by means of contract he can treat me as a slave, does that mean slavery is justified? It is not, right? Because we tell you that these rights are inalienable. You can never give them up under any kind of circumstances. That is why domestic violence has to be necessarily reported in the court of law. These are the kind of aspects we're talking about. In a similar way, when a woman is going into the idea of a commercial surrogacy, the family is going to take the child away, is the one which gets to control the diet of the woman. It's the family which gets the right to control what kind of conditions she is going to be brought up in the coming up 9 months. It is the family family which gets have a necessary say in the future of the children in the first place, and therefore the entire aspect of the 9-month developmental process and the future value of emotional attachment which a woman might develop during the period of surrogacy completely gets lost, right? And there is no way out for her to a contract. The entire difference between free surrogacy and commercial surrogacy lies here. Free surrogacy initially means a state where a woman is making the decision irrespective of any kinds of biases. There is no financial incentive, there is no other kinds of incentive, and therefore in this case a woman will only give a child up if she necessarily believes she cannot bring the child up. So if a woman is a victim of marital rape and she decides she doesn't want to have the child, and if she is poor, she can easily give this child up as a measure of free surrogacy, right? We are not compromising on them under any kind of scenario, but she can give the child up on her own terms. But when you come to the entire aspect of commercial surrogacy, Mr. Speaker, we tell you there is no kind of an opt-out option which exists in the entire aspect of commercial surrogacy. A mother undergoing free surrogacy, even if during the period of 9 months, she develops a kind of attachment and emotional bonding with the child in the first place, she can still keep the baby because there is no contractual basis, there is no basis by which she can be manipulated, there is no basis by which she can be sued, there is nothing which binds her legally in an idea of free surrogacy. It is entirely an altruist measure which she is taking as regard to a commercial surrogacy kind of an environment where she becomes, and she is necessarily alienating a right which in itself was inalienable in the first place. That is where we tell you we stand so strongly on this entire concept which we have also talked about, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, right? We also tell you, Mr. Speaker, that they also automatically come up and tell you that listen, parents have reasonable control over the child. There exists concepts of foster homes. There exists all the kind of context. But we tell you in all concepts like foster homes or all contexts like adoptions, parents make a willful, let's say, prioritization that they cannot bring the child up. There is no financial incentive involved. There is nothing to compromise on their ability to do it for means other than actually going out there and having a baby, right? And then they make the assessment that, okay, I cannot bring the child up. I do not have the necessary means. And in this case, they hand over these, then they themselves make themselves tell the state at large that they cannot bring the child up. But in this case, even though you can bring the child up, even though that you might develop an attachment with the child, even though all these things might exist, you simply cannot opt out because there is a tag of commercial surrogacy attached. You are at the behest of the party which is going to buy you in the first place, on the grounds of this being different from prostitution, on the grounds of the fact that it's an inalienable right. We are very, very proud to propose.
And now what I'm going to tell you here is we have clubs like Manchester United which are analogously related to the developed nations, and we have clubs like Derby County who are analogously related to your developing nations. Now let me tell you this. The primary responsibility of the organization, which now is analogous to the state, lies that the players in this case are not ill-treated or are well taken care of. Now what we are doing by not banning commercial surrogacy, what we are essentially doing is we are making sure that the Manchester United, a developing or a developed nation, can essentially buy players and give a certain amount of money to the players of that developing nation, that is a developing club, and therefore the developing club will now become self-sufficient in that manner, and effectively what happens is development all around, right? And that is what is a basic concept of our entire speech, right? And the entire concept we need to understand is commercial surrogacy will only arise in the cases as mentioned by our opening opposition, which is India, which are developing nations wherein women don't necessarily have the autonomy to have a child or are essentially married off before the age of 18 to have children, and their value is only associated because they can give birth to a child, right, without them being necessarily empowered to make their own decisions. And they believe that that is what we are also propagating in this case, because the state as a whole, the state as a whole has this overarching responsibility to ensure that the parents can take care of their children in a well-sustained manner. And that is why even though I may be born with a penis or I may be born with my genitalia, but they restrict the age of sex to 16 or 18 because they understand that even though I have the right to exercise my natural right to have sexual intercourse, they restrict my age to 18 because they understand that that is only after which I can essentially carry that out in a responsible manner. And that is why you have the age of 18, the age of 21, because the government understands that initiating a family is something which is for the betterment of the entire society, and the entire nucleus of the society's response or is based on the family as a whole. And that is why you have family welfare programs, you have one-child policy, right? What they have essentially propagated is that you have a right to bring more children in this world, right? And then therefore you should be allowed to have as many children as you want. But the state has this overarching responsibility to ensure the parents are well off, or the parents, if they are well off, can essentially buy off a womb from the other person to ensure the child is taken well care of. Now, apart from that, the other concept that we are going to bring to you here is the concept of a contract, which is essentially forgotten by them, right? What does a contract state? The contract states that a negotiation can be based on how the child is reared and how the child is brought out in the first place, right? There's this concept of prenatal care, there's this concept of postnatal care, and the concept of the mother being taken well care of, which is essentially not taking place in the developing nations as such. And therefore, the mother now can rent her womb to make sure that she becomes empowered and takes care of her own children as well, right? So what essentially happens is that the mother is well taken care of and her children are also well fed. And apart from that, you have parents who have necessarily taken that choice right now to have that child, because they also understand that they can, in first scenario, pay for it, and apart from that, take well care or take good care of that child who is born out of that surrogacy, right? So now the child plus both the parties have consented to a contract essentially are in harmony and will ensure that all the parties are taken well care of, not taken care. Apart from that, what I'm also going to tell you here is the entire concept of looking at it from a concept of family planning and a concept of child development as such, right? Because what we clearly need to understand is that the government does not make sure or does not restrict you to go out there and essentially marry in the first place, or the government does not essentially stop you from carrying out what you want. But the repercussions of a family is what, or the repercussions of how a child is taken care of essentially is the mandate of the society or is the mandate of the government as a whole, right? And that is why you have the concept of state necessarily taking away children from parents who are abusive, or taking away children from parents who essentially do not believe in taking well care of their children, right? And we believe that if the parents or both parties have consented to this process of having having a child through this mechanism, we believe that because it is implicitly mentioned in the contract, none of the parties will be oppressed. And this is because essentially now the mother rented her womb because she wanted money, because she was in need of money right in the first place. And that is why commercial surrogacy will essentially come out. And that is why developing nations are ones which will have women who want to go out and take this mechanism into account. They've entirely talked about having free surrogacy, or they've essentially talked about yes.
Sir, I am a woman who wants to give up a child, and I am going to sell the child to you. You will still take care of me. But what commercial surrogate does is, Jatan will only have a baby because he wants to earn money. Isn't there a big difference between the two?
So ladies and gentlemen, the basic difference that I'm going to tell you here is that they've essentially taken this from the concept of the women wanting to have the child in the first place. We aren't stopping that women to have a child with anybody else, right? She can go out there, marry and have that child. But what we are doing is she's already voluntarily agreed to give away her womb because she needs the money in the first place. So what is wrong in essentially establishing a market which means that everybody is well taken care of, right? And now by driving this underground and making this illegal, what is essentially happening is we are taking away that choice or that option for that woman to better herself or to lead to her empowerment in the first case, right? And that is something that they've completely forgotten. It is voluntary, it is free choice, and that is where the concept of a state regulation comes into the picture, because the state will ensure that all the parties associated with this move are not oppressed in any case whatsoever. Now, apart from that, what I'm also going to tell you here is that this is very, very fundamental to the concept of developing and developed nation, as I already told you. And apart from that, the other concept that I told you was right. Yeah, the analogy between why rights, even though are natural, have to be curtailed by the state in a certain manner, right? Now, what they came up here and told you that there are certain rights which are very, very natural to me, and therefore I have free right to exercise them in no matter whatever way I want, right? But the basic concept here lies, and herein lies, that I, as a mother, am directly responsible for what my child does, right? And that is where the concept of minors not being allowed to sign a contract comes into the picture. And we believe that it is the third party which has been completely forgotten by the side of the house. And we believe that that child is somebody who the state needs to essentially adhere to, who is his or her welfare, right? And therefore we believe that if the parties, or both the cases, have agreed to have that child, they will essentially make sure that that child is taken well care of. And this is also tying in with the concept of adoption, which they try to underplay, right? Because if they really want to have a child, or if they really want to rear a child so much, they can essentially adopt a child and then look after his welfare as well. But because these parents were well off, but they couldn't have a child naturally, essentially means that they can now rent this womb to have that child and take care of him, right? So essentially what that means is, looking at it from a perspective of the buyer, they were ready to have the child and they were ready to take care of him as well. And the mother agreed to that concept, and she can also still have a child, right, if she wants to. And she also entered into a contract, and she voluntarily gave up that part of her body, or readily gave up that body sovereignty. And effectively what that led to is development and betterment for everybody, right? And that is what we are propagating here. The concept of free market in terms of commodification of something which leads to less expenditure on the state in terms of social welfare schemes not being essentially employed, because a lot of children now will get a proper home. Apart from that, what we are also propagating here is that parents who want this family to be set up properly in a manner which leads to the development of society as a whole will also be met now, because these children will have parents who can essentially take care of them, which does not necessarily happen with a mother who belongs to an underprivileged section and who was
that the opposition is totally grossly wrong about. We initially came up and Ayusha told you that the idea of having a baby and being pregnant is an inalienable right of a woman, of a lady. Ladies and gentlemen, now when the opposition comes up here and says that, you know, if it is commercialized and the woman will be looked after, well taken care of, well, let me basically explain it to you with simple logic. If today I am rearing your baby, I am a surrogate, I am taking care of baby. Tomorrow, if you have the slightest of wishes that you have a nice baby and the baby is yours and grows up to be a good baby, you will automatically take care of me. You will automatically make sure that the child is taken care of. You will automatically make sure that the woman is healthy throughout her pregnancy, because the health of a woman will directly affect the health of the child. And here we tell you that free surrogacy gives you this in itself. Free surrogacy gives you in itself and gives you this very clearly, that the woman will be taken care of very nicely, and the child and the health care of the child will be taken care of. Why we are against commercial surrogacy, ladies and gentlemen? Because this whole point of commercial surrogacy is grossly violating women empowerment. Why are we having so many debates about women empowerment in various parliaments all over the world lately today, gentlemen? We say that we view the female as something more than just a baby-making pod. We say that we view women as equal citizens of the world. We say that we view women as people who can walk hand in hand with men or do better than them in every sector of society. We are saying, we are saying that when you open up this whole idea of surrogacy as a commercial gain, as an idea of a job, as an idea of an avenue to gain revenue, this is grossly against the idea of feminism. Rather, we'd like you to donate funds and educate those women, make them skillful, make them learn to develop in different avenues. Why should an inalienable right, like the right of having a baby and being pregnant, be compromised upon by a woman just so that she can earn her revenue? This is a point which we are grossly against. Ladies and gentlemen, and again, this contractual responsibility which is appointed upon by commercial surrogacy, I will draw a parallel to it through slavery, ladies and gentlemen. When you were a slave of somebody, you had a contractual right to your owner. You had a right which said that, yeah, you own me and I will work for you. Herein, in most cases, the owner would take very good care of the slave, because after all, the slave is working for him. If the slave is not well, the good work will not be done. But we are totally against this point of contractualizing it. Why should an alienable right like that of pregnancy come under contract? Why should a woman be in a parallel to a slave be bounded? I mean, through a matter of pregnancy, through a matter of those 9 months after conception, there are many biological, physical, mental changes which go through a woman, which may cause major changes in that woman, in effect that she intends to violate that contract later. And that's why we feel that contracting it and binding it grossly violates this inalienable right. And therefore we believe that going back to my point of slavery, that if a slave can be ill-treated or cannot be ill-treated, we still ban slavery. And that's why we are saying that she may be ill-treated or ill-treated, not the point. We want to ban it because of the contractuality which is added on to this concept of having a woman be pregnant. And herein I will repeat my previously said argument. Okay.
Sir, don't you think that allowing women to make money either by renting their rooms or by concentrating on their careers while using a surrogate instead of being forced to take extended leave to have a child only promotes the idea that women are not baby-making pods?
No, I totally disagree with that. I believe that your first concept of making a woman surrogate enough and then earning money through surrogacy in itself is an instant baby maker machine when you're labeling a woman as. And here I will tell you that my whole point of empowering women through free surrogacy is that it is a choice, it is an inherent choice which a woman will take, not out of compulsion to earn money. And rather, if there is a compulsion to earn money, we would appoint these women to take various alternate ways of gathering the revenue of income, and hence we believe that your point does not stand. Here, Karan, I'll take you.
Sir, don't you think that so can you explain a real world scenario where a woman would want to give up her womb for free?
A real world scenario where a woman would give up her womb for free is that if her sister, for example, cannot have a baby and she already has one, she might act as a free surrogate. Well, this is not directly, this point is not valid in this debate. I don't know why you came up with that, but what my whole point here exactly is that free surrogacy in itself will take care of the health of a woman, and we believe that free surrogacy is a much larger and better option to prevent this whole labeling of and do things. We believe that this inalienable right should not be credited upon. No, not taken again. Basically, I'll go over what my teammate said to you earlier, and as I conclude this debate. Number one, that this right is an inalienable right. And number two, violation of this right is violation of empowerment of women, and it is directly against the whole concept of feminism. And we believe that if you want a woman to earn money, you'd rather have various alternate ways of having her employed and various alternate ways of her generating money. And we believe that this concept of surrogacy can be well taken care of even in the circumstance of free surrogacy. And we believe that the pregnancy contract inherently restricts the woman, it restricts her choices, it restricts her whole growth process, and we believe that this contractual basis is in addition a direct analogy to slavery, and hence we believe that free surrogacy is a much better option as it has no bias. The woman will give or not give the baby according to her women's fancy, and that's why we believe that is rationally and ethically a much better concept than contractualizing it and adding finances to this whole process of being a surrogate. And that's where I end my speech.
Okay, this is my first speech after 4 months, so I'm going to start by saying that I will definitely last longer than I do in bed in this speech, which means 5 minutes is the limit. I just want to start off my speech clearly by stating that Jesus was a surrogate child, and I don't think Mary and Joseph had any issue, and the world definitely turned out to be a better place. So I don't think that surrogacy is such a bad idea. But now going down to the rebuttals and finding out what was really important in this debate. So side proposition came out and stated that there were many harms that they felt within this case. But I'm going to point out through the course of the speech that whatever they have stated as harms still exist, whether in free surrogacy or in the commercial surrogacy. And hence, in the eventuality that both do exist, when you do a cost-benefit analysis, if both problems exist, you're still going to choose the one that has some amounts of benefits. And I'm going to show you through the course of this speech why commercial surrogacy has more advantages than this. But before I go to that, let's tackle a few points that they have clearly said. That they have stated, they have firstly characterized this as a woman's, this an innate right to give birth to a particular child. And I asked in my POI itself, stating that if it is such an innate right and if it is such a joyful thing, why can you not give a poor woman who firstly is financially incapable of probably raising the child post-birth, why do you not give this woman to an opportunity to fulfill that right and to gain the joy of having that right without having the burden in the first place to be responsible to take care of the child post-birth? So this is our whole problem with the whole thing, and how Karan clearly came out in the opening said in the first stage that it is also a natural right to have a family. And how this is particularly beneficial. Now, why is this beneficial? I am going to tell you in certain number of ways. Not only does this help mentally the family who is unable to have a baby to come to terms with the fact and accept the fact that we want a surrogate and to live a happy life while having a child in their home, it also will benefit the lower down people of strata, because one of their major points was monetary polarization. They've said that, fine, that, such things exist and it's not right to monetarily polarize it for the rich. But Gauri also came and stated, and many people, sorry about the name again, that this polarization already exists, be it in any strata of society, be it in terms of health treatment, be who is available to approach for health care, or whether someone can afford a Ferrari or someone has to walk to school. Such polarization does exist. Does that make the concept itself bad? No. Just because some people cannot afford it does not make the concept bad. But however, an advantage to this, and I will show you how monetary polarization actually is reduced, is the fact that now these poor people that are there have a means of coming out of what they are. Maybe they're not educationally qualified, maybe they can't really work in jobs, however they have a good biological system and they can go and be a surrogate and they can give birth to a baby. Through this, they are getting the financial benefits of giving birth to the baby, plus obviously added financial benefits during the course of time, which helps reduce that monetary polarization, even if not in the similar terms in a place. So we feel that this is still beneficial for both sectors of society. So first, let me go down to now what the issue of free surrogacy and the conceptual surrogacy was. Their main their main issue with contractual surrogacy was, number one, was primarily with the fact that they have come out and made outrageous claims that saying that with that the family during the course of the 9 months will be major stakeholders and the woman will not be able to, have a say in that. But Mrs. Speaker or Mr. Speaker, whoever is the speaker here, try and understand what the whole concept of a contract is. A contract can clearly state within its terms and conditions that within the 9 months of the surrogacy, certain areas of this can be decided by the woman to take care, and so family cannot intervene in certain areas, and a contractual obligation can clearly state these restrictions, which does not enable the intervention of the family or the mother in this particular so that whole premise of their case is fallen. And other point that they brought about, but they have not looked at it from both sides. Another very important point is that they said that that in surrogacy it is very possible that throughout the 7-8 months of the surrogacy, the woman may want to have an emotional attachment or something. But it is also possible that in free surrogacy, without a contractual obligation, the woman will now, after 5 months of pregnancy, not want to follow this process, which means that she, in free surrogacy, she is not contractually obliged to take care of that baby by his point, which means that he said clearly that the family cannot, the family cannot intervene and this, and mainly Jatan's point that, the baby will still be taken care of in the eventuality that, this, whatever they give support, irrespective of whether it's contractual. The point is, then by that logic, there is obviously the parent whose child is going to be born, will obviously take care of their child or whatever this, but that does not contractually obligate the woman itself in free surrogacy to want to go forward after 6 months of pregnancy to actually go through and take care of the child. And we believe that when the family and this are equal major stakeholders, we believe that there has to be a form of agreement reached between this particular and before I end, another big rebuttal to the whole black market claim that they have made, and a lot of their arguments again to the whole black market that the opening brought up was the point that just a simple statement by Usha claiming for some reason that the woman approaching it will not be criminally liable and the man approaching it and only the middleman is criminally liable. By that logic, even prostitutes and the guys going for sex are not criminally liable and only the middlemen and pimps are criminally liable, which is not the truth. Prostitution itself is also criminally liable. So that whole argument of whatever argument it was itself falls down flat because it was irrelevant to this particular debate in the particular case. So we showed you in this particular speech that it's past 6, no? Oh, okay, fine. It's past 6. Sorry. So the whole point that we have tried to bring about in this whole debate, what we've tried to analyze is that they are not technically, though they've claimed in their first speech against the concept of surrogacy, they are not, because after claiming that it is a natural right and it is destroying the sanctity of pregnancy, they are then saying that they are fine with surrogacy in the first place. Okay, but now contractual surrogacy is what's destroying the sanctity. So once you neglect that, we are going to just simply draw a line between free surrogacy and contractual surrogacy, and we've shown you how the harms exist in both cases. However, for the welfare and making it mandatory for both people to be involved in the development of the child, so that 5 months down the line in free surrogacy, if any of the two want to back out, they cannot, and they are liable to make sure that that child is brought up in the healthy world. And we feel that this is where contractual surrogacy is highly beneficial as opposed to free surrogacy, and it does not lead to the fact that there is free will of the individual involved. We also showed you how this is beneficial to the society, not only financially but also on a whole holistic this to giving everyone an opportunity to give birth. Thank you. With this,